evening. I want to welcome everyone to the October 9th meeting of the Charlotte City Council. We're glad to have everybody here. We apologize for being a little bit late. We had a very full dinner agenda. We'll continue with our meeting this evening. First, we're going to have introductions of those who are here at the dais. That's going to be followed by an invocation and then the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we have a couple of proclamations this evening. I want to remind everyone for the invocation, this invocation is a personal expression by a member of this council intended to solemnize our proceedings. It is not an endorsement of any particular religious belief. Rather, we note and celebrate the diversity of our community, including our religious diversity. So during that invocation, you are welcome to stand, but not required to do so. We will stand for the pledge. So when we get to that, I will let you know. So we'll start our introductions with our clerk.
Stephanie Kelly, City Clerk. Arlenia Ivory, District 2.
Good evening, Dimple Ajmera, District 5.
Hello, Ed Driggs, District 7.
Claire Fallon at large.
Good evening, Julie Eiselt at large.
Mayor Jennifer Roberts, welcome.
Good evening, James Mitchell at large.
Greg Phipps, District 4.
Good evening, Kenny Smith, District 6.
Marcus Jones, City Manager.
Bob Hageman, City Attorney.
Okay, and this evening the invocation falls to me. I have chosen for the invocation to have a moment of silence. And I would ask those who, if you want to have your internal prayer, if you want to think about those we have lost, you are welcome to have your own silent thoughts during this minute. And now if you will join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first of our two proclamations, the first is a recognition of Veterans Day. And Councilmember Driggs has that proclamation. Councilmember Driggs.
Thank you, Mayor. On Saturday morning, I had the pleasure of participating in a sending-off ceremony for the Charlotte Honor Flight, in which veterans flew from Charlotte to Washington and were able to visit national monuments and memorials. In that context, I was able to speak with many veterans, including 16 World War II veterans. You can imagine they were elderly. And it provided a remarkable window on history. They talked about some of their experiences in Europe, on the seas, on the beaches, in Asia. And I think, therefore, it's very appropriate that we read this proclamation today, and I'm proud to be able to do so. And I will work with the organizer of the flight to cause it to be delivered to those many veterans who couldn't all have been here tonight. It was a big group. City of Charlotte, North Carolina Proclamation. Whereas November 11th is the anniversary date of the end of World War I and a time to pay tribute and remember those men and women who fought to preserve the liberties we hold so dear. And whereas Veterans Day affords all of our citizens a special opportunity to honor the deeds of those who sacrificed so much to answer the call to arms during the life of this great country. And whereas the 20th century marked America's greatest armed struggle through 2 world wars, the Korea War, the Vietnam War, the Saudi campaign, and other armed conflicts worldwide, and whereas the sacrifices made by those who served have been the price that our veterans paid so that the rest of us might enjoy the fruits of justice and liberty now and into a new century, and whereas without Americans like them who were willing to sacrifice everything, the fate of our country would be unknown. And whereas Veterans Day has become a significant part of our American heritage as we recognize the millions of our citizens whose military service has had a profound effect on history, and whereas on this date, November 11th, 2017, We want to honor those who serve and rekindle the spirit of patriotism and the desire to serve our country. Now, therefore, I, Jennifer Watson Roberts, Mayor of Charlotte, do hereby proclaim November 11, 2017 as Veterans Day in Charlotte and commend its observance to all citizens. Witness my hand in the official seal of the City of Charlotte. Jennifer Roberts.
Thank you to our veterans. Our second proclamation is in honor of someone from our Charlotte community who has achieved fame by being inducted in the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame. And I actually have a brochure here for those of you who don't know this Music Hall of Fame. It is not too far away. It has the likes of James Taylor, Nina Simone, Roberta Flack, Doc Watson, Andy Griffith, and many others who are honored there for their contributions to the music world. And we actually have with us tonight our native Charlottean, Anthony Hamilton. And so I'm going to read this proclamation, and then we're going to have Mr. Hamilton come down and get a picture and receive the proclamation. Whereas Anthony Hamilton is a Grammy Award-winning R&B singer, songwriter, and record producer from Charlotte, North Carolina. And whereas Anthony Hamilton grew up on Hemphill Street near West Boulevard and graduated from South Mecklenburg High School. And whereas Anthony Hamilton has contributed over $50,000 to various charities around the Charlotte area and countless service volunteer hours. And Hamilton hosts the annual Anthony Hamilton Big Payback Week in his hometown of Charlotte during the CIAA week, where he distributes food, backpacks, shoes, and presents checks to shelters and family centers throughout the city, with additional support from the Jordan brand. This project allowed him to contribute $30,000 alone in donations to various nonprofit organizations. And whereas Anthony Hamilton has several mentoring projects that provide hands-on mentorship for aspiring artists, including the talented teens of Inspire the Fire. And whereas Anthony Hamilton will be inducted into the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame in Kannapolis on October 19th, 2017, now therefore I, Jennifer Watson Roberts, Mayor of Charlotte, do hereby proclaim October 19th, 2017 as Anthony Hamilton Day in Charlotte, and commend its observance to all our citizens. Congratulations, Mr. Hamilton.
Unless you're a germaphobe, then it's what you expect.
Doing great. Even though you're a saber, I'm a Muscat.
Sorry for
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not far away.
Yes, all right.
Y'all do realize all that's picked up on the
Yes, okay.
Okay, all right, we got you, okay, all right. Congratulations. How are you? You come on, too.
Yeah.
All right, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Can you sing a song?
I said that was she done.
Actually, one of his groups, Inspire the Fire, are going to be performing at the National League of Cities event that is going to welcome city council members and mayors from all over this country in November. So we appreciate your contribution to that as well. Thanks so much. Okay. Next. Next on our agenda, we move to our consent items. And I need a motion to consider items 23 through 48, with the exception of 45, 46, 47, 28, and 29.
So moved. Second.
Okay, and Councilor Isel wanted to ask a question about number 27?
I'm good. Siegel answered it for me.
You got that all set? Okay. Is there any other discussion of any of those items?
20, are we gonna?
Yeah, we're coming back to those to vote
26?
separately. But
I'm good.
we're coming back to 28 and 29. Okay. Okay. Then all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So next we turn to item numbers 28 and 29, and Councilman Mayfield wanted to pull those. Councilor Mayfield.
Thank you, Mayor, and the staff person is making their way down for us. Just for a reminder, item 28 is a lease of city-owned property at the Charlotte Transportation Center. My question was specifically around the leasee, which is a wireless cell company, of which I'm thinking our uptown area is prime location. And at our transit center, we have a number of fast food restaurants and other things. And to be honest, I wanted to find out if that really was the best use for a site in prime location in uptown Charlotte. Mr. Corollas?
Sure, thank you. Great question. Tony Corollas, City of Charlotte Real Estate. The question is about the use for that location as a CTC location here in uptown regarding a cell phone equipment sales, basically. So we had in that specific location same use for the last 8 to 9 years, and staff strives to have the best tenant mix in these type of locations. Obviously, that tenant mix is predicated on consumer demands and supply and demands in those retail locations. So at this point of time, we think that based on the consumer demand, the tenant mix is the right tenant mix regarding restaurants and cell phone sales. Now, that does not mean that will not change as this lease renewal will come up, and that's something that we would look into.
Thank you, Mr. Corollas. And for Mayor and colleagues, I want us to think about in the future how we look at tenant sales and contracts in our area uptown, and what is the image that we want to present not only to our residents but also to those that are visiting. And upon the recommendation of staff, I do move to approve.
Okay, is the motion to approve, is there a second?
Can I have?
Second?
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem?
I agree with Councilmember Mayfield. I think that when we had the policy that says consumer demand, but it's also a facility that we know we have a captured audience, and the idea of having healthy food in that location, to me, would be something that even if it wasn't as competitive or brought in the revenue, I think it could be something that we would be able to do, that when you look at the location of the center and everything that's around it. So I'd like to actually ask, I'm going to vote and support the lease today, but I'd like to actually ask us to come back, just like we've looked at our policies on how we've placed places and where they are, whether or not at the transit center we have the right mix, because we are creating the demand there, I understand, but sometimes I think we need to really look at some options that people may need that we have been asked to provide and not had the opportunity to do. So I'd like to actually ask that we review that policy and the manager come back with what we're currently doing and some options that we could have, because there are other centers where you see great food markets, fish markets. There are lots of things that I think people would do, but if you just say, well, whatever the tenant or the leaseholder comes in and asks for without us doing some work, I think we're missing an opportunity.
If I'll follow up in a minute, that's a great point. And some of these leases will be coming up within a couple of years or so. So as these leases will come up, obviously, because we are under contractual obligation. So as leases coming up, we will be opening the market to more options where we can provide the consumer more options and more variety of retailers and food options.
Let's have a plan to do that, to go out and look for those retailers and food options.
Any other comments? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The next item is item number 29. Also, Councilor Mayfield, snow ice removal services for city-maintained streets.
Thank you, Mayor. As Ms. Eagle comes forward, item 29 is snow ice removal services, as you mentioned. And the question that I had was actually a two-part question. One, I wanted to get an idea of how many contracts do we currently have, or what percentage of city work is contracted with Blythe Construction? Because their name comes across a lot of our contracts. So it would be helpful to get an idea, especially when the city of Charlotte has partnered with the National League of Cities, and you have myself as well as Councilmember Isel representing when we look at the Race, Equity, and Leadership Council and are we looking at how we look at contracting through an equity lens? And what is an equity lens when we have minority and small business enterprises in our whole MWSBE? So I wanted to get an idea of what is the percentage that Blythe has, as well as why do we have a contract both for Blythe Construction and Blythe Development, even though they're two separate parts of the organization. I wanted a little more clarification on that.
Good evening. I'm Kim Eagle with the City Manager's Office. And to your question, Ms. Mayfield, Blythe Construction and Blythe Development are two separate legal entities. They both bid on the same kinds of work for the city. I have those numbers for you, but by way of background, this particular item is for snow and ice removal only in situations where city forces cannot handle the volume of removal. We've had to call on this kind of contract only 2 times in the last 17 years. So the scale of the operation and the nature of the amount of equipment that has to be at the contractor's disposal is on the larger end of the scale to be able to help us in those extreme circumstances. When we went through the bid process, we reached out to 51 different entities to try to get interest in this work, but as I mentioned, it's a very large-scale kind of endeavor. When we received proposals out of the 51, we had 4 responses, 2 of which are the 2 companies we're requesting award to tonight, Blythe Construction and Blythe Development. Just for some quick numbers to your other question concerning the amount of work that these 2 companies receive from the city, and they do things like parking decks, paving, resurfacing of streets, stormwater maintenance, new street widenings, that kind of work. Blythe Development Company currently has 17 active contracts with the city, and Blythe Construction has 10 active contracts. I have not run the calculation yet of all of those types of contracts that are currently active in the city, what that percentage is, but I would be more than happy to bring that back to you. I just didn't have time to go out to the full city database to run that particular percentage.
And I appreciate the clarification. So, Mayor, unless my colleagues have additional questions, move to approve.
Second.
Okay, the motion is second, and there's some questions. Councilmember Ajmera?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Also, I think about 2-3 weeks ago, we had a few workers that had come up here and talked about a specific treatment that they are seeing from some of these contractors that are getting city contracts around wage theft, benefits. Have you looked into that to ensure that we don't award such contracts if there are these practices that are taking place, such as wage theft, to ensure that workers are being treated fairly?
Yes, ma'am. We have requirements in our contracts that apply directly to the prime contractor. I believe the situation you're referring to was occurring on airport property for some work they were having done that was actually a subcontractor, but I would be happy to go back and get a follow-up for you and provide some general information on how we ensure work practices are appropriate based on our contract requirements.
Just to follow up, Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So even if it's subcontractor, if you could tell us what are some of our options to ensure that even if it's a subcontractor, what tools do we have to ensure that city money are being sort of awarded to employers that are going to treat their employees or subcontractors even fairly?
We would be happy to provide that in a follow-up. Just
Thank
give
you.
you a summary of how that works. Yes, ma'am.
Councilor Isel?
Thank you, Mayor. So to Councilmember Mayfield's point about looking at the other contracts that companies like Blythe are involved in, I think another question I would have in the case, in this example, is how many companies could actually, that are certified to work for the city, how many could even fulfill that? And I think that's what we should look at every time we look at these opportunities. How many other ones are out there that could fulfill it? And we might find that now in case of ice and snow, there's probably not a lot that have that equipment, but there's other opportunities probably that might even bring attention to the fact that we really could be looking for other subcontractors and small businesses and actively recruiting them to certify.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, so that motion was for both A and B, correct? Councilor Mayfield, that was for A and B. Okay.
For both A and B, yes, ma'am.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you, Mayor.
thank you. So now we move back after consent to some public hearings on some voluntary annexations. The first one, item 11, is a public hearing for the Bearwick Commons voluntary annexation. There are two parts to this: to hold the public hearing and to adopt the annexation ordinance. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers? Okay. So, do I hear a motion?
Move to approve A and B.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion about Bearwick Commons? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
On the one.
Okay. Okay, I understand number 12 is not ready yet. So number 13, we have a public hearing for the Reedy Creek Nature Preserve Extension voluntary annexation, and then to adopt that annexation ordinance effective October 9th today. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion on Reedy Creek?
96.47.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, our next voluntary annexation is for Wingate Park Nature Preserve. And this also will be effective as of today, to extend the corporate limits to include this property and assign it to City Council District 3.
Move to approve A and B.
Second.
And do we have any speakers, Madam Clerk? Okay. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Looks like we have one more annexation, and that is for Byram, NC 160. And this would also be effective today, and this would assign this to City Council District 3 as well.
Move to approve A and B.
Second.
Okay, do we have any speakers, Madam Clerk?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Councilor Mayfield.
So, Mayor, all I would add is these three that we just approved specifically within District 3 are going to definitely be benefits for the city, since it will be bringing unincorporated area into the city of Charlotte that would not only contribute to our tax base, but also give us an ability to help hopefully direct some of the development to ensure that we have diverse price point when we look at how this area continues to grow. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, this is like over 200 acres in total are going to be
Just a little bit.
parcels. Okay, Councilor Phipps?
Yeah, Mayor, Council, I was wondering at what point would these voluntary annexations require us to redraw district lines?
Probably not until the census.
It's the size of Greensboro instead.
I think that might happen after the census, 2020.
Why are you trying to break up my district? Don't be mad because I'm grown.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, we have our city manager's report. Mr. Manager.
So, Mayor, members of council, I have one item to bring to everyone's attention this evening, and it's a good item. As you may know, that this week is Minority Enterprise Development Week, and I think it's very important that we recognize the accomplishments of our minority business enterprise, as well as the corporations and financial institutions that are partnering with them. The city is proud to sponsor a series of events this week, including educational workshops on bonding, winning proposals, navigating resources, and financing. There's a Meet the Buyers and Prime Vendors Fair, and on the 12th of this month, there will be a luncheon celebrating the achievements of minority entrepreneurs, and they're supporting the commitment to equal opportunity. So it's a good week, and I would ask that as much as possible that individuals are able to participate and pass the events and pass along the opportunities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manager. That's your full report? That's the good news for the day?
Yes.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is the Cross Charlotte Trail Pedestrian Bridge Tiger Grant. And we need a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit an application to negotiate and execute a Tiger 2017 grant agreement with the U.S. DOT for the Cross Charlotte Trail Pedestrian Bridge over US 74.
Move approval.
Is there a second? Did I hear a
Second.
Second, okay. There's a motion, a second. Councilmember Fallon, did you have a comment?
Were we supposed to get costs on that for the future?
Yes.
Okay, looks like Ms. Eagle, we wanted to have cost analysis.
If we don't get the Tiger grant?
Right.
I have some background information, and then as we step into it further, I'm going to ask Danny Pleasant to come assist. But by way of reminder, you have already approved $38 million for the Cross Charlotte Trail. The first $5 million was approved in the 2014 bond referendum. That was followed by $30 million, approved in the 2016 referendum. And then an additional $3 in the 2016 bond referendum, $3 million for the Ballantyne South Charlotte extension, for a total of $38 million that you've already approved for the project. And tonight's action is approving our application for a Tiger grant, which would leverage $5 million out of that $38 million to actually put in place a better option for a bridge, as you talked about at your dinner meeting, instead of the interim solution across Central Avenue that we talked about. So it leverages money you've already approved by applying for that grant. We did go back and look at the bond language to your earlier question. The language was very generic in nature. It authorized bond funds to be spent on transportation infrastructure, not specifying the specific project, and it did come through the Chamber's bond campaign. So it was very general in nature. In terms of the progression of the Cross Charlotte Trail, Mr. Pleasant can speak to that if you have additional questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Eagle, for that explanation. Are there further questions about the grant application? Councilman Driggs?
Mayor, I just wanted to say I support the trail, the project, and I'm going to support this on the basis of the assurance that the $5 million is contained within funds that were already allocated, and that we're looking entirely to the Tiger grant for any increase in costs that relates to the bridge, the substitution of this bridge for the prior proposal. I did note with some concern tonight that we asked the question about what the total cost of the trail was likely to be. My colleague Kenny Smith brought this up, and we're not able to get a good answer, and we don't have time to try and resolve questions like that. So again, I will support it on these terms, but I'm a little concerned about what we're going to hear in the future concerning the additional money that may be needed.
Oh, I think I saw a head nod that your understanding is correct about the funding. Is that right, Ms. Eagle?
You are correct concerning the $5 million that this grant application would leverage. Yes, sir.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
I think this is a good move for us to make, because we can spend $5 million painting Central Avenues Bridge. Here, if we have the opportunity, we can take that $5 million that we'd have to do the retrofitting of painting Central Avenues Bridge to actually get federal funding that would come in at $11 or $12 million. So to me, I think we approved this last year and moved forward with it, and I think having this opportunity to try to build the bridge that might be more permanent is worth the effort and the application. So I'm going to support this as a part of our $38 million to bring in an additional 12 and to build what the staff has determined is that kind of, I think, both a bridge that talks about making a statement, but also connecting something that's really important without just using paint.
Councilmember Phipps?
Yeah, I would just want to know, in the future, can we get a report on what we might believe is an estimation or a projection of the cost to complete the entire Cross-Charlotte Trail? I mean, in the future, I mean, can we get some sort of information
We're certainly
on
continuing to gather more and more information as we have a master plan now, so we know what the alignment's going to be. That helps inform. As we get into segment by segment, we'll continue to do more and more design, and that will inform even more. There are opportunities to partner with others to maybe take down the cost of some of the land. And in some cases, we'll have the trail built as part of development, so there's an economy of scale there. So the roundabout way of saying I don't have an exact number for you now, but as we move this thing through the future, and we'll bring to you from time to time, most likely through your budget process, as it starts to unfold this winter and spring, we'll get better and better information about that. So the cost estimate of the $35 million that you are very attuned to right now, just a reminder, that cost estimate was calculated in 2012, before we had a master plan, before we knew what the public's expectation was about the quality of the project. So it makes sense that given inflation, given higher expectations, given more information, that cost, we can do an awful lot with $35 million. We can get from South Carolina all the way up almost to Noda on a seamless trail for $35 million. The $16.7 million that would be part of this bridge project is sort of icing on the cake. It gives us a great iconic connection, and it's as functional as it is based on its form.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Smith?
So just real, two questions. One is, so then we started this project without a cost that was going to cost us to complete it.
Well, we did some calculations, very general calculations, based on a cost per mile that we were seeing on Greenway-type projects across the county. And I think you'll have to agree that most of the Greenway projects across the county aren't quite to the finish that we see on our more modern-day ones, like the one outside the Metropolitan. So that was based on a very basic cost per mile that we had seen up until 2012.
Next question, Mayor Faust. So the alternative is to paint Central. How much is that's going to cost?
To retrofit, to extend the trail under the 7th Street Bridge, up into Central Avenue Bridge and across, and then to a connection back to the rest of the trail is about $5 million. So the $5 million you spend either match the federal grant, or we just spend it to do the Central Avenue Bridge solution.
You done? Councilmember Driggs, and then Edgemere.
Just to follow up, the concern I have is that without a stated number, this is essentially a blank check. So I would just like to see the normal discipline that says that we have a goal in mind or an expectation in mind as to what it's going to cost, and that any changes from that are then discussed and approved as appropriate, as opposed to this kind of open-ended process where we just wait and see. And that's, I think, the issue is can we just get a number there and then have some accountability for that?
We know what the number for the bridge will be. We've got a pretty good estimate on that. To finish through the Noda and that area, it's a little trickier, and we haven't done all the design, we haven't done all the calculations. Not so different if we were going to build, say, a 485, because it was built out over many, many years, and of course, the cost, just as cost escalates over a period of time, it got more and more expensive as you build it. So transportation projects, big infrastructure projects, that happen over a long, long period of time. The longer that period of time, the more difficult it is to make that accurate calculation.
But if you, if there was some order of magnitude of the uncertainty, are we talking about potentially 3 million or 10 million, or what range are we dealing in?
And we will continue to bring those calculations to you, and we'll give you our best estimate when we can get it. And
I hope we just get like a little bit of a framework here so we know what we're spending. Thanks.
Councilmember Schmier?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the way I see this is just an approval for us to submit the Tiger Grant. So really, this is a match. This is, if we were to get this grant, it's $11 million that we are getting from federal. So, I mean, this is a no-brainer where we could get almost 11 plus 5, so it's $16 million of infrastructure or the facilities that will be used for our residents just with $5 million investment. So that's the way I see this. With that, I'm moved to approve. Thank you.
We had the motion already. Absolutely, and I just want to echo and clarify, we heard this in our dinner meeting, so those who are just watching now, all the detail. This is to apply for a Tiger Grant that would bring back 11 point something million federal dollars for a $5 million local match. That is twice what we're investing to make a signature bridge. It would really be a place-making bridge connecting essential parts of the Charlotte, cross-Charlotte Trail. We saw pictures of amazing bridges in other cities that have done this, that have led to more economic development. And I can't help but remember the figure that we were given for Little Sugar Creek Greenway, a $43 million investment. And I was on the county commission. We were spending this money, and people were saying, oh my goodness, that's so much money. $43 million led to $433 million of private investment along that greenway. And so the tax return from that, in a couple of years, you've more than paid for that investment. And you look at the usage of that Little Sugar Creek Greenway, and that's going to connect to the cross-Charlotte Trail. It's tremendous. It serves all ages. And this is a great, let's just make sure we get the grant, and that we get a great signature design that is going to really stand out and make people notice and remember Charlotte for being this great big connector.
If we do receive the grant or award of the grant, that award will come back to you for acceptance.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Any other comments? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much for your good work on that. Okay. And next we have appointments to citizen boards and commissions, and I'm going to let our clerk read through the winners.
Okay. For the Domestic Violence Advisory Board, Gabriel Aesop has been appointed. And we will need a runoff between Rita Brown and Tiffany Newbold for the other position.
Okay.
Okay.
I move Tiffany Newbold be nominated for a vote.
Second.
Okay, so we're going to vote on Tiffany Newbold. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, it looks like Tiffany Newbold is also appointed.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to Gabrielle and Tiffany. All right, Madam Clerk?
For the Housing Appeals Board, there will need to be a runoff between Cherie Redis and Tawana Wilson in order to vote between the winner of those two and Gregory Pizarro.
We also have somebody choose to vote on Gregory Pizarro and see if we can get 6 votes.
Just needs, I will, okay, move Gregory Pizarro for
Second.
approval. Yes.
Okay, there's a motion, a second. All those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, we got everybody. Okay. Mr. Pizarro is appointed to the Housing Appeals Board. All right, next, Madam Clerk.
Madam Mayor, we will bring Keep Charlotte Beautiful back to you at the October 23rd. We need to look at those ballots.
Okay,
And for
Councilmember Smith?
I thought Mr. Beaver was appointed last time.
Sue was.
I believe that he was, but we need to verify that, so we'll bring Keep Charlotte Beautiful back to you. So for the zoning, oh, yes, ma'am.
I think Sue was also appointed last time,
Yeah,
right? Was Kenny not?
Sue
Yeah.
Duchenois.
that's right, we did do that.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I think we did that.
Sue, who had 5 votes, Sue Duchenois. Is this a second appointment? Oh, there
There
are
were two
more
appointments.
appointments. Right, so this is the, yeah.
So,
There was one that was appointed last time, there are 2 more.
so who was appointed last time?
We had 2
Mayor?
appointees last time,
We had two.
Yeah.
Because we congratulated
Sue
Sue
was,
on getting it.
Sue
Sue
was
and-
appointed, and
and Jeff Beaver were
Jeff
both
were
appointed.
So take Sue and Jeff off.
Right.
And we will bring this back to you at the October 23rd for that final position.
Okay,
Without Sue's name.
right.
For
Okay,
the Zoning Board of Adjustment, Terry Brown and Scott Capania were both appointed.
Congratulations, Terry.
okay. Congratulations. Very good. Okay. Are those all of our appointments tonight?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, very good. I believe that we are on mayor and city council topics. Let's start with Councilor Ivory.
I just want to announce that on October 12th, we're going to have a meeting at the West Charlotte Recreation Center at 7 regarding the neighborhoods, and there's a lot in that District 2 that over 50 years old regarding water, sewage, and piping. So I would invite constituents to come out. James and myself will be present at that meeting with city individuals. Thank you.
Councilor Mara.
Thank you. I want to highlight the entrepreneurship program that we brought to Charlotte, and this is the first program that was actually partnered with Silicon Valley entrepreneurship program, that it provides 3 modules where it starts with a business plan to product development to venture capitalist, where they actually come to Charlotte and pick one of the youth who have developed a project and give them actual financing to develop a company. And there were 36 kids total that actually enrolled in the program, and it's cost-free. So I'm very excited about all the youth that have participated in the program, and Sunday was our first kickoff. And we'll continue to keep you posted as we move forward with module 2nd and 3rd, and potentially a new wave of technology leaders will hopefully come from Charlotte region. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Driggs.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to let everybody know on Sunday, October 15th, the Ballantine Breakfast Club will be holding its first Ballantine Community and Candidates Picnic from 2 to 4 o'clock at the Ballantine Hotel on their south lawn. This is what was the Ballantine Candidates Forum and Chili Cook-Off, and apparently they decided to change the cuisine. But it's essentially that event. Again, it's from 2 to 4 o'clock on the 15th of October. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. It's early.
Oh. Councilor Isel.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to mention to council and to the public that we have been going through an exercise on the Community Safety Committee of looking at all of the recommendations from various task forces in the past several years, and from the Police Foundation report, the 21st Century Policing Task Force report. And this past Thursday, staff did an excellent job of compiling all those recommendations, and that's still in draft form. But in looking at what's been accomplished and what work still needs to be done from those different task forces and efforts going back to 2005, and we recognize that there is work that still needs to be done. But more urgently, we need to take a look at the homicide rate in Charlotte. 72 homicides is approaching a record that I think goes back to 1995, and we need the community's help in looking at the factors that have gone into the loss of lives in Charlotte, and a dramatic increase in the loss of lives in Charlotte. And so I'm asking the city manager to help to put together a group, starting with our stakeholders that are working on the Police Foundation report. And this group would presumably include other community members, but really it's a community-based group that is going to look at what happened with the 72 homicides and get more details and work with the community and and get us some answers and some recommendations. So it's a continuum of the work we've been doing, but it's more urgent around the homicide rate right now. So I would ask if the city manager could do that, please.
Explore the idea of a task force.
I'm asking him to put a group together to look at the homicides in Charlotte. Thank you.
We can do that.
Super. Thank you. I have some thanks to give to folks, but also I think this is our first council meeting since the Las Vegas shooting, and I just want to give a shout out to our first responders and to those in Las Vegas who helped end that faster than it might have been, and also just to remember all the loved ones who were lost, and to think about going forward how we keep our communities safe. And it was a terrible tragedy that this nation won't forget. Unfortunately, we're seeing too many mass shootings in our country. And in light of our homicides as well, we need to do something about gun violence. And I'm hoping that we have a community coming together to have a real discussion about how we all can be part of helping reduce gun violence. Couple of quick thank yous on a lighter note. We had the CIAA Media Day. The folks from the CIAA are looking forward to the February event that week of 12 teams competing here, the men and women's basketball teams, and we look forward to welcoming them. I also want to give a shout out to the Hornets and to Michael Jordan. The Hornets actually donated funds to refurbish Tuckasegee Park and 4 outdoor basketball courts with beautiful Hornets colors. It's part of their legacy projects, and a lot of kids are going to have a great time playing there. Michael Jordan also just made an announcement of donation of $7 million to help bring healthcare facilities to needy parts of town where there's not currently access. And so we have great heart and compassion in our community. Just want to say thank you, Hornets. Thank you, Michael Jordan. And the last thing is we have a distinguished group of visitors here from Germany with the Atlantic Bridge. I greeted them this morning, and they are looking to learn from Charlotte. One of the folks in that delegation was a candidate against Angela Merkel. So this is a very high-level delegation with some federal parliamentarians and officials from Germany looking to increase the ties between our city and their country and doing good things together. So I just want to say welcome to them. Mayor Pro Tem.
I wanted to say welcome to Clarence Armbruster, who is the 14th president of Johnson C. Smith, who will be coming to Charlotte next week. And we're excited whenever we have leadership at our historically African-American college. And to say goodbye to a wonderful leader, Dr. Ronald Carter. I think that Mr. Armbruster is coming with his spouse, Denise, who works for a company here, Wells Fargo. I hope they'll make that transition easy for her. So we say welcome, and we're grateful to have you join the JCSU family. Homecoming is October the 21st. Miss Ivory will put on her majorette uniform and bring her baton out of the closet.
It was cheerleader.
Oh, sorry. Oh. Well, you know, it was a short skirt and it had something. So it's going to be fun, October the 21st, and he'll be here as well, the new president.
Yeah, got him.
Councilor Mitchell.
Mayor, Council, actually, I'm going to ask Mayor Pro Tem if she can give us an update. I promised the citizens of Coolwood about tiny homes, and Mayor Pro Tem, if you can just talk high level.
Yes.
About tiny homes.
The tiny homes issue has been referred to the Transportation and Planning Committee. We had one meeting, and we had the planning director, Ed McKinney, give us a briefing. 2 areas that he addressed. One, the specifics of the proposed development with the one lot already on the ground, the house already constructed in Coolwood. And we talked about what is the concept for review, and it was really about creating character, and it's what we're trying to do with our entire update of our Unified Development Ordinance, is to find places where the character of our community would be maintained. And certainly, I think you've been clearly hearing from the neighbors and members of residents of Coolwood that they don't feel that that's within the character. But there is an ordinance, just to say that in that area where people have the ability to meet all of our regulations and requirements, then that's going to be something we're going to have to follow through. But we also will have a meeting, I believe, in the next week, and we will continue to address the issue around tiny homes. Today, I just handed out to the committee members, there was an article in the New York Times paper yesterday about tiny homes, and the issues identified in that article around zoning, compliance with things like, how do you provide water, how do you provide sewer, what kinds of lots, where they're acceptable, whether they're on wheels, whether or not they're on a pad or built into, I guess, what would be called the ground here. Those issues are going on all over the country, so we're going to continue to explore what we can do, but our context is around working within the same principles of our Unified Development Ordinance review, which is character and making sure that people, when they invest, probably the most significant investment they have in their lives and careers, in their homes, that they do so with an awareness, and we're going to try to make that possible.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Council.
Councilor Phipps.
Yeah. I guess a short time ago, we had some visitors from the Latino Civic Engagement Program. They were escorted here. I think they just left just a few minutes ago. They were escorted by Wendy Pasquale, who is the executive director of the Camino Community Center over in Northeast Charlotte. So I just wanted to thank them for coming to let's just witness civic governance at its finest here in the Charlotte City Council.
Got one still there. Welcome.
I've got two
Councilor
things.
Smith.
Two things. One is, first, I would like to just extend my prayers to the Dowd family. Roddy Dowd Sr. passed away a little over a week ago, owner of Charlotte Pipe and Foundry, 100-plus-year-old company. Mr. Dowd served our country and served our community. Was a tremendous philanthropic person and really gave to this community, has provided hundreds upon thousands of jobs for local folks, and he will truly, truly be missed. He was a gentleman of the highest order, the only person I know that would still call me Kenneth. So he was a good man, and he will be missed. So my prayers are with the Dowd family. And then two, I'd like to ask for my colleagues to allow a referral to Governance and Accountability Committee. Last week, we had the city auditor released a report on contract award thresholds. Currently, the city manager has the ability to negotiate a contract at $100,000. Above that has to be approved by council. It has been in place since 1995. Based on a review of comparable jurisdictions, the auditor recommended raising the threshold to $500,000. This would give significant savings, time savings to our staff, and reduce our consent agenda by about as much as 50%. So if there's no objection, we have the ability to take it up on our calendar. We would like to take it up, and then we will come back hopefully here in the next month, 45 days, and make a recommendation to the full body.
Yep, I think that sounds like a good idea. Absolutely. Good.
Thank you.
Councilor Mayfield.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two items. One, want to remind the community, hopefully everyone has already received it. If not, this is your invitation for the District 3 meet and greet. The city manager and staff has been hosting meet and greets around the city, and if they haven't come to your area, they will be coming soon. But tomorrow evening, starting at 6 p.m., it will be at the Arbor Glen Recreational Center, which is in Clanton Park, right off of Clanton Road. So would like to invite all of those in the community to join. You will have representation from multiple departments within the city, where you will be able to receive information, ask questions. Here's an opportunity to truly be engaged with what may be coming down the pipe in the area, not only in the surrounding immediate area, but also what is happening in the city. And also, Mayor, I would like to have, if it is okay with my colleagues, a recommendation to the Housing and Neighborhood Development Committee. the city manager and I had already had a conversation regarding the fact that we are seeing a number of multifamily units that are being purchased. I believe that there's a conversation that we can have both with the upcoming rewriting of our UDO and expansion, where we will have the ability to look at some implementation that can be instituted on the local level and through language that can help protect our current residents as new development is coming in. So we would like to refer that to the Housing and Neighborhood Development Committee, and we do have time to bring some information back before going into a new cycle.
Sounds like a great idea. Super. Okay, very good. Mr. Manager, anything else?
Move to close.
Hey,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Stand adjourned.